What's going on, Dogman in here? Okay, quick update to my PC issues from that last video where I said everything was basically going to hell and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. You know, hell in a handbag, more or less. Okay, so first off, before we get too deep into this, you're going to see some gameplay, some Division, probably some Warframe, Fortnite, I don't know what, because I was just testing everything now that I got most things fixed up here. I want to say thank you to everybody that did comment on that video. I was pretty badly depressed, let me tell you. Going through so many different things past couple days with this computer, the past week or so. And so thank you everybody for commenting, giving me some suggestions on things I hadn't tried, some suggestions that came out of it, some thoughts that came out of it as well on my end of different things to do and different things to try to fix what's going on. So I'm going to have some pictures of my laptop internals and stuff like that. I'm going to show up some temperature changes and things as I talk about the temps, along with some, video footage probably as I play around a little. So, yeah. So first off, I generally keep my laptop very clean. I still have my other old MSI that I had been using for the first few years of gaming, if you will. It still works. It still runs. And that was one that I learned how to clean laptops because that was the first time I ventured into gaming laptops. That was about 7-8 years ago. And at that time, the market was moving so quickly that, upon investing in that laptop, it was almost immediately worthless, if you will, in terms of how the CPUs and GPUs and everything was changing so much. The one I have now, it's actually now it's working very well. It seems to be working very well, and it's still perfectly fine. So the next step will be gathering money somehow to be able to save for an updated investment of a laptop, if you will, and maybe move this one to the one that the family uses at some point. I put a lot into this one. I don't want to really debate desktop versus laptop and versus consoles or any of that stuff because that's not really what it's about. Everybody has their own reason for choosing what they choose, and what works best for them. And a laptop for me, really well decked out to do all of the different things that I do on a daily basis, is exactly what I need. For me to invest the money required for everything to get a desktop system going, including monitors and, microphones and cameras and all, whatever you want to call it. I mean, like everything, it almost comes out to about the same price when I look at it overall. As to getting a laptop with everything that I need sufficiently to be able to work for several years. As long as the investment that I make into it returns, like the money I put into the initial cost is returned over time, then the value is there. And like I said, I'm at like 4 years on this one, and yeah. So I was just a little scared. But basically, I tore it down. Cleaned out those fans. I cleaned everything up. The fans were pretty clean anyway. This model of MSI that I have, one of the reasons I really like it is the openness of it. So as you'll see in the bottoms in some of the screens, it's very open. The air can flow in and out very well. Temperatures have always been lower than what the other one was. Even though they did a good job on the other one, it didn't have enough. It didn't have the double fan cooling, didn't have the extra heat pipes and all that stuff in it. This one does, and this one has generally been a very solid one for me. So I went ahead and I cleaned out the fans. I did get some extra dust out of there that I didn't know was in there, forward, backward, all that good stuff. I didn't change the thermal compounds on my GPU and CPU at this time. I probably will buy some and change it because I know it is that time to really look into changing it. However, the temperatures on my system is very good at this moment. It wasn't bad before. It wasn't the best. When I was testing out the Division, I was topping that max the max temperature, if you will, on my CPU, GPU, depending upon what it is. And the Division is pretty much one of the most intense games that I run in terms of how the game is. So yeah, so I was getting close. My temperature on my GPU was about 87 Celsius. You know, the top end on that I believe is 95 before it starts throttling automatically. So I was cutting it close, and that was at about 50% usage, that type of stuff. Where the CPU getting it to about 85 to 87 as well, and that's what my fans cranked up at a little over 4,000 RPM. That's kind of high in terms of temperature. Not that it's high in terms of temperature, but with the fans cranked up at 4,100 RPM, that it was staying at that temperature was kind of not the best. So there's a few factors involved in this. Number one, the way the system works now is a hybrid power system. So the battery is internal. It does not come out. There is a plug, you know, to pull the battery and unplug the battery, but it doesn't actually come out of the computer, right? It's not supposed to anyway. And it works in conjunction with the AC power in a hybrid mode. So it kind of pulls from both of them, depending upon how much power is required, depending upon how much things are going on. Now, I was having some issues recently, and there's a number of different factors into this. There was a game that I downloaded that was given to me by a developer, and they wanted me to play the game and test it out and, you know, do some reviews on it. And I did play the game, and it was okay, and I still haven't done my review on it, but I have now already uninstalled the game, finding out that one of the issues I had was after I installed that game. There's definitely some driver problems. Even though I updated my NVIDIA graphics, there were still driver problems that extended out of the game into everything else. Actually, just poorly optimized code, if you will, that was actually messing around with other games on the system. So I got that out of there. I had been having some problems with a calibration test on my battery that I did, and it didn't fully calibrate last time, and I just let it be, and I wasn't thinking anything of it, and then it started to cause more problems, as it will, if you will. So last night I went ahead and I actually I did a full battery reset, not a calibration, but an actual battery reset. I had to search Google to do a reset, figure out how my system does a reset, which basically you're going to shut it down on my laptop, and you'd actually push and hold the power key for 10 seconds. The system will jump on and then power back off, and it will reset the battery with the system configuration somehow. And then when I went and put it back on, I did start noticing that immediately I was having some better things going on with the computer after the battery reset, because the system was picking it up properly. Power-wise, the PSU, which I'll have a picture probably in here, the PSU on the screen, you'll see two of them. There's one on top and one on the bottom. The one on the bottom is the one that was manufacturer, one that came with a transformer block. And recently, if you looked at when I put it up there, if I remember, you'll notice that the cable itself seems very warped, if you will, like something happened to it. And it's just very recently. I don't know if it took some kind of a surge, or if it just couldn't handle the heat coming out of the transformer anymore. But looking at the settings, or looking at the information on it, it's a 300 volt PSU cable, but it only handles 60 degrees Celsius. So when it gets really, really hot, it's not able to really handle it. But that's what came with the computer. However, this computer can put out a lot of power. I happen to have an extra PSU cable, which would be the one that was on top of the picture. And that one is rated at 300 volts again, but it's got 105 degrees Celsius temperature peak on it. So it can definitely handle the actual extra stress that this laptop is putting out in terms of how it goes in the high performance mode, if you will. not having real problems with charging. I was, one of the big things I was checking, the transformer voltage was good. Now the transformer voltage is definitely good. No loose connections or anything like that. But I wanted to go through everything, do a deep clean, like everything was suggested. So I got in there, made sure it was all good. You could see in the images, you see my M.2s and my SSD 2.5-inch SSD disk there. I don't lie, I got them, and I actually have space for 2 more M.2s on that board underneath. So that's what that was one of the big things about this version when it came out, was that I was able to put 4 M.2 SSDs on here. Plus, I had that 2.5-inch space, as well as still having like a Blu-ray drive, which I don't use often, but I have some pretty old software that, yeah, I still sometimes need the disc stuff, but nonetheless. So I did the cleaning. I did a battery reset. I went through a couple different things. I checked the temperatures, like I said before. I shut it all off, and it was just odd that it was just recently. I had updated my XSplit stuff. I thought that was the problem, so I backtracked on my system on that one, or did a restore before it. Put it back in, didn't have any issues. I did another NVIDIA graphics GPU check to make sure, and there was another update again, which came after that game that was given to me to test, which I'm sure I will post something about here soon. I took some video footage, so I'll give you my ideas and thoughts and reviews and try to tell you I definitely don't recommend it, just per se. I don't even remember the name of the game, but I got the recording someplace. So I did all that stuff, cleaned it again, like I said, and I put it back on now. And when I got it all up and running, it was almost instantaneous restart on my computer. I mean, I was within 2 seconds, I was back into my Windows 8 system, up and running. And I noticed a slowdown before that, but I didn't think that the fans were that dirty, and they had some dust that definitely came out of them, but I still didn't think that they were that dirty compared to other things that I've had in the past. Like the first time that I didn't realize on my first laptop how much I needed to keep it clean. But nonetheless, so we did that, and then I got back in here. Things seem to be pretty good. If I remember to post up here the images of my CPU temperatures. So I went ahead in there into the Division again. I went into Fortnite. I went into Warframe. And I was checking out a couple different things, but really taxing on the Division. So when I started it up, I brought my fans up. The fans are now running at 3,700, 3,800 instead of 4,100 RPM. Power consumption's down better. You can see my temperatures. My temperatures on my GPU is 35 degrees Celsius. CPU was flipping between 35 and 43, which is perfectly fine. Where before the clean out, the mass clean out, if you will, I was running probably around 51 on both of them, maybe a little bit higher. So the clean out made a huge difference just on the fans alone, in terms of the fans not having to work as hard, and so everything else seems to be pretty good. And the second set, when I was inside of the Division and I was really cranking it, I was topping up at 60 to 65 Celsius on my GPU, and about the same on the CPU with those fans cranked up to a little over 3,800. And that was a huge difference over what it was previously. Obviously, when I was saying we're talking around 85, 87 before, now we're down to 60 to 65. That's a huge difference in the cooling of the system. And then when I brought it back down, my fans back down to 1,500 RPM, I was right back down to the same Celsius, 35 to 40 roughly, and things were looking good. So knock on some wood. I think with your help, guys, and some of the extra stuff that I did in terms of checking the battery resets and fixing some programming issues, I think we got this thing back on track again. I didn't doubt that it was a solid laptop, like I said, the other one I have that's 8 years old still works, still runs. It does need a new battery in the other one. I could pretty much only plug it in at this point, but that one was that's a user replaceable battery, where this one is not a user replaceable battery. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of update everybody what's going on. I'm hoping that with some extra testing here, by the weekend we can get back on doing some live streaming and stuff like that. I mean, things were really, really smooth in the division versus what they had been in the past. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys are still here listening in, again, much appreciated. I mean, the goal now definitely is to still start considering finding a way to save for the next investment, if you will. But hopefully, I can probably get another year or so out of this one, and maybe by then I'll have been able to save up some extra between donations and YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling because I've got a lot of things to do. I want to get some video footage out, some game stuff going on again, and get happy, if you will. And I'll keep you guys up to date on the progress of stuff. I got a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm doing, some vlogging things. It was a whole crap load of stuff this week that's happened so far. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.